Tai Chi can be considered this ancient Chinese system, and it's very much a martial art, or was very much developed as a martial art. In the States, it's widely known as, I think for anyone over 77 years old or something like that, it's like the number one way to regain balance. But outside of the States, people of all ages do it. In Taiwan especially, you'll see like 6-year-olds doing Tai Chi, to China and Taiwan. But like, kids start young and they're doing push hands. And like, my buddy Tui Xiao Chen out there coaches grade schoolers and high schoolers, and they're all doing this. And it's a safe, fun way to manipulate space control, like weight, understanding how to claim space, slow yourself down and speed up your perception of time. Again, I liken it to mindful wrestling because it's, you're moving slow at first, and then when you start doing the sports stuff, it becomes more competitive, more athletic. But it's one of my favorite things to share, and that's one of the things that really always blew my mind about demystifying Tai Chi, is that it's not magic, it's timing, it's precise angular understanding.
This episode is brought to you by CK Lin Mindset Coaching for leaders, entrepreneurs, and high achievers. Having a clear mind will empower you to tap into your true potential and achieve extraordinary results with more ease and freedom. Visit www.talkwithck.com and apply for a free clarity session today.
Yeah, and I can show you, we slowed down her videos, and I was stealing moves from her, and I have our whole New York team now.
Great artist steal.
Oh yeah. But next year, I hope to be in Taiwan 2020 for the World Cup in October, which is when it happens every 2 years, Tai Chi World Cup. So it's an amazing game, and any athlete, it'll enhance any person's abilities. It just enhances people, and that's why I focus more on using it as a human performance tool. And the range of push hands that I've experienced in my life, I liken it to, and I've been calling it like mindful wrestling, because it spans a spectrum from holistic all the way to athletic. And it's just, if you look at it from a lens, if you look at it from a performance enhancing lens, it's amazing. If you start looking at it saying, okay, well, a bunch of the comments on the YouTube page are like, oh, these guys are just pushing each other around, and they don't understand exactly what they're looking at, so therefore they're processing it from a different place. And when I look at, I used to fight Sancho for Li Chailang, who was the big Beijing coach, and I got pulled onto his team when I was 18. So, I know the value of taking a punch and learning how to take a punch and how to get out of the way of taking a punch, and the character it builds to take a punch.
Yeah,
I think everyone should get punched in the face. But I think that what we see now and the science of fighting has advanced so much, especially in the last 7 years. As a matter of fact, one of my buddies who's trained with me push hands before, Brendan Weafer, is a UFC fighter, and Strikeforce. He came in, and I still need to post a video with him, because anytime I invite a top level athlete to come in, I ask them to share, because what we're doing is we're saying Tai Chi is not it's tough when you use Tai Chi and when you use a term that someone else believes is something, and then you see it as something else, and now you have conflict because they're like, no, it's this thing, that's not Tai Chi. So that's why I say whatever we're doing is not going to be called Tai Chi in the future. It's something that is foundational to all human movement. People aren't taught how to stand, how to walk, necessarily, in terms of best practices for that.
Yeah.
And when you find, and also the primal aspects of what weight distribution does, how it affects a room, how your weight is distributed, it affects everybody in the room. And we talk a lot about like claiming space, etc. Like, claiming spaces and holding space. These are very particular things that we experience, and when someone walks into a room and you feel that commanding presence, there are so many factors at hand there. But to be able to help guide and share what I feel will be, and find other like-minded individuals that also have different expertise that can help build out the understanding of this, because there's only so much that I am, and we need other people to come in, and that's not to say that it's only me doing this, but in January, Tui Shou Chen and his college put out a list of all the folks that you should talk to in the world for sports Tai Chi push hands, and like I'm the only guy living in the States listed. The other guy who's American is in Taiwan with Tui Shou, and he's great. Casey Payne, great guy. So in terms of like promoters, we're actively promoting across the world, and there's people care about elevating the sport and elevating the art. Yeah. So I don't want to go off on a long-winded tangent, but I'd love to get some of your guidance on what to share and for your audience.
Sure. So let me actually set it this way. I'm really excited to have Jan here with us, and why, I'll tell you why, Jan, as well as telling you, the audience member. Jan is a master at his craft, specifically Tai Chi. I want to talk about, and what I really appreciate about you is not only you are very skilled at the technicality of Tai Chi, but also contextually, you share a lexicon, right? The language, how you talk about moves, and also how it applies to, as you said earlier, the presence when you enter a room, when you enter a ring, when you do competitive sports. Right now, I'm in the middle of learning how to box, and you're right. It's beautiful to learn how to take a punch, right? And but from interacting with you, the conversations, we also get to the space of the art of learning, because that's a huge part. It's not just the specific Tai Chi moves that I'm interested in. I'm interested in the meta, the learning process, how a top master think about learning and teaching and transmitting that knowledge to another person. I think that that's the most compelling thing about you, actually, when I first met you, because I can hear and feel that you deeply think about this, and you deeply think about how to transfer the knowledge to people who are interested. Why don't we start there? Because you actually said a quote to me, which I really like. You said there's an astronomical difference between the first place and the second place. And at first hand, it doesn't make sense. So why don't you explain that a little bit more contextually? What do you mean by that?
Sure. The first thing I'd like to say is that I still don't frame myself as a master.
Yeah.
I call myself coach. I've been called coach. I like that term.
Yeah.
And one day I hope to call myself a master, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Well, actually, on that note, real quick, to me, a signal, an indicator of a master is someone who considers him or her a wise student. If you tell me you are a master, automatically you're not a master to me. You know what I mean? Any master truly that I meet, a lot of the podcast guests that I have in the past, whatever they may be, a master musician, a master entrepreneur, a master hedge fund manager, it doesn't matter. Like, they are very accomplished in their craft. And the thing that I notice most about them, these noble warriors that I interview, are that they're wise students. So thank you for that.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think one thing I am a master of is the smoothie.
Yeah.
We're drinking some. I consider myself a master of the smoothie, but anyway.
Yeah. So going back to that quote.
So that quote is pulled directly. I have The Art of Learning right in there. I meant to bring it out. Josh's book, Josh Waitskin's book, The Art of Learning. I highly recommend anybody to. So I'll say this: I've never read the book. I have the signed copy in there from his party that he threw before it launched.
I read the book.
listen to the book on tape, or I should say the Audible. And it took me years because Josh was like, "You still haven't read it?" I'm like, "Nope, I haven't read it." And I finally listened to it probably 4 or 5 years ago because Tim, he's real close with Tim Ferriss, and Tim convinced him to narrate the book himself. And I was like, "Oh, well, all right, fine." It was Josh narrating the book, and we shot most of the video, most of the competitions he's talking about, if not all of them, exist on video. We shot them. A buddy shot them while we were in training camp and out in Taiwan for the '04 World Cup. So that quote comes from Josh in that book, and I don't want to misquote him, but it's essentially the difference between number 1 and number 2 is astronomical. And I loved when that hit me so hard when I heard him say that in the book, and the lifestyle changes that are required to go from number 2 to number 1. And as the guy who lost the 2010 World Cup by 1 point, that hit me so hard. I watched myself. You can go online and see that match. I watch myself underperforming in that match. I watch myself missing opportunities, and I say to myself, hesitation is what needs to be purged there. Longer form pattern recognition, and a different lifestyle leading up to that event, because it's the lifestyle leading up to it that essentially affects you the most.
Rome isn't made in a day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, so to speak on that is still a bit challenging for me because I'm still in the process of making those changes. And whether it's 2020 when I go out to the Tai Chi World Cup, or the next time that I do go out there with the team, I would like to go out there with do a full documentary with the team and really expose that to the West to the U.S. I should say in a stronger way. But I'll have to implement that, and I've already been making the changes for the last few years ever since that quote hit me hard, and I spoke to Josh in New York several times. Our sons played together a bit, and Josh and Dan are the assistant coach. Dan, they're brothers, and they're like the only 2 guys I call my big brothers. So and that's not a title that I give away at all anymore because of how much power it gives away. But they're my big brothers. So
what is the difference between the first place and the second place?
Again, I would say read Josh's book and how he describes it. But it's what your first thoughts are in the day. It's how you schedule your day. It's what it's engineering the breakthroughs that you need to because you're going to have the breakthroughs. You need the breakthroughs, and so you have to have the lifestyle that engineers the breakthroughs that are essentially where you can predict. I'm going to have a breakthrough today. I'm going to have this breakthrough tomorrow. I'm going to have this, and not necessarily know exactly what it is, but to have that that precise schedule, lifestyle.
How do you do that? Like, I'm enrolled.
Sure.
Absolutely. I'm dedicated to my craft,
Sure.
whether it be a podcasting or entrepreneur or holding space for people, the transformational retreat that I hold. Like, I'm there, right?
Yeah.
But how tactically could I try out?
So I can only speak from myself experimenting with new formulas.
Yeah, please.
So, there's a period of time where I was meditating too much. When I say too much, I was spending like 2 hours in the morning sitting in meditation. Kind of messed me up. Walking around outside, and I was also taking hard impact to the head, sparring super hard. And I had this. I was very fortunate because I was running off of investment capital for my production company, and so between training and work, I had a very closed ecosystem of like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I had to break those patterns, and just really look at what felt right. And there's, to a certain extent, there's journaling that helped me identify patterns. There's making my meditations more efficient, spending time to do journeys at least once a week. And when I say journeys, I think there are many ways to take a journey, but to sit in the evening in a meditative space and to do your best to allow information to come in and to move with it. So I think tactically it's analyzing yourself and analyzing what feels right, that intuitive sensation. In Deepak Chopra, I think in the seven spiritual laws of success, it's actually, I'm not a, I don't read a lot of Deepak at all, God bless him, but that book resonated with me. And he talks about the feeling, like everyone has an intuitive, the gut feeling or the heart feeling, wherever it is in the body that you might experience it.
The inner knowing.
It's a sensation that will feel good when you're doing the thing you should be doing, and then it won't feel good when you're doing anything else. And how to get that, how to turn the volume up on that, to me has been one of the best performance enhancers. And the more I've turned the volume up on my intuition, I've seen my life shift. And you and I were talking yesterday, like in general, I'm very grateful for my daily life because I walk around and great things happen all the time. It's like, it's awesome, and it wasn't always like that. I used to hate going to school. I used to hate being alive. At one point I thought about like suicide when I was like 11. I was a little fat kid for a while, and what that fat represented was a bunch of pain, attempting to protect myself from the world, and so there's a lot of stuff going on, and to have that shift in life from making the choices that put you into a purpose, into your truth, into the thing you're here to do. When I found that through filmmaking and Tai Chi, both of those things started supercharging my life. And when I had those good feelings and that positive feedback loop, focusing more on that and how to expand that, because it's not all just one thing, it's actually all the things that surround it too.
Yeah. Fractal.
Exactly. So getting to that space is to me is a massive part of having the breakthroughs and having being able to elevate yourself to a place where we had I run a media company, and we have a comic book publishing arm. We floated to #1 downloads on the #1 digital comic book app for a project called Justice for Hire, which is the series I'm producing now. So, live action series. So, I didn't know how to engineer that. It just happened. And so when we slid out of first place after 3 months, which was awesome that we were there for that long. There was a certain fear of how to maintain #1. As a matter of fact, the day we hit #1, I was hit with the fear of how to maintain #1. I was like
immediate
fear. And I was like 2009. I was like 27. So I'm like sitting there trying to figure this out. And I'm like, and I wasn't in the space yet to really look at why it was working. And I think sometimes it just takes time for you to remove yourself from the pattern and then look at it and say, oh, okay, these are the things that worked. These are the things that didn't work, and let's remove those, do more of these, and then how do we supercharge that? What are the practices in my life? And I consistently look at, whatever your physical wellness, like mind-body practice is. Like, I think everyone needs one. And asking yourself, how are you serving the world? I think is a major component of, in my opinion, getting to #1, at least now. I think we're shifting into a world where honest leadership is absolutely necessary. And I think the #1s of tomorrow are going to be the ones who are the most transparent, the ones who are the most open and serving the world. So So I feel like I'm hoping that's a strong enough answer to something that I feel like I still need to learn from, and even talk to Josh about some of his practices, because he sits with, CEOs and top athletes and helps to guide that process.
Right, he's a high performance coach.
Yeah, exactly.
His job, quote unquote.
His actual job is a high performance coach.
Yeah, it is to help people get to that flow state.
Yeah.
So one of the framework that I teach people is high performance or performance equals flow minus interference. So what I hear, kind of looping into what you share is sit, meditate, and self-examine what the interference may be.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And then actively think about or assess ways to remove the barriers, the interference from whatever it is that you do. But let me challenge that a little bit.
Sure.
Right? So because part of the neurosis of the mind is you can rationalize, justify anything and everything. So how do you discern? How do you find that attunement of, am I just mind fucking myself versus this is my inner knowing, let me follow that.
So
you know what I mean?
I totally get it. I want to throw one little variable in
please.
that someone gave me, that I came across probably last year, but someone gave it to me. It might have been Stacy, who you just met earlier this year, is looking at the mind as a tool. And because I think sometimes you get caught in your thoughts, and obviously you think you are those thoughts, and you are the mind. And anytime I switch into that mode of recognizing that it's simply one of the tools, just like my limbs are, and if I need to keep my limbs at my side, I can. If I need to drop the breath, I can. That's when I recognize, I can do the same thing with the mind. And everything just stops.
Hey listeners, if you're enjoying this podcast and all the nuggets of wisdoms, go to bit.ly/Noble Warrior Review and leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you're getting out of this podcast. This will really help us attract other people like you and share these nuggets of wisdoms to others just like you. Okay, do that right now, bit.ly/Noble Warrior Review. Thanks a lot.
And
but it's easy to say.
It's tough to get there.
Right.
It's challenging.
Because
you have to do the work to get there. Because all of this stuff, it's just like weightlifting. Everything we're talking about is it's all repetition. Even the relaxation is repetition. And it's also interval training. Because essentially you can't push yourself to just go all the time. You have to give yourself the intervals and the ideally on a best practice schedule of what works for your body, your weight, your lifestyle, of getting that of bringing that training into allowing yourself to relinquish.
So you're a fan of disciplines and habits?
Absolutely. Okay. As I eat every 2.5 to 3 hours, 4 to 6 times a day, 2 fistfuls of food to interval train my metabolism. I will do my best to do certain trainings, at the same time each week. If I'm doing something on a daily basis, I see my routines. I'm like, cool. Well, how can I work my lifestyle, and how can I? If I'm training for a competition, it becomes very regimented. If it's more me, shifting into new stages in life, and then getting acclimated to that new plateau, and then making adjustments from there, I'll each season will have its own structure. But I think your original question is the discernment,
right?
And I think the training discrimination is one of the things that we're here to do.
Like, what's that?
So that comes from my. I grew up under an Indian guru, and that comes from my teacher. Discrimination between being able to tell the difference between what is. First of all, what is morally right and wrong for you?
Yeah.
What feels right inside versus and how it feels when interacting with the outside, and that's why I talk about push hands so much, Tai Chi push hands, because when you start to get sensitive to two things about Tai Chi push hands, and this relates directly to training discrimination. One, you're slowing yourself down to speed up your perception of weight distribution, of breath control, of maintaining posture under pressure and redirecting that pressure toward a goal. And that goal for you and your partner, because these are all partner drills, is essentially to push them just to the edge of lowering their center of gravity and to the edge of their balance, so that they learn how to, again, do the same thing. Maintain posture, redirect pressure back to you, so you can take it. So you're going back and forth. And
So the goal is not to destroy them.
it's not to destroy
To
them.
throw them off
And
during the drill time.
Doing the drill time, yeah. And so when you're doing these drills, and there's a whole ecosystem of this stuff, I found that one of the best ways to train discrimination in a way that I can practically share. Because other things have to do with my upbringing, they're so relative to my journey and my path that having a conversation about them could, may not be effective or helpful for anyone else to hear. But what I do find effective and helpful for people is to get in contact with somebody, and to notice that there are similarities in the amount. Every piece of tension in the body is connected to emotion. It's connected to stress of various types, and and when you start to recognize the pattern between people and how you deal with pressure from particular people, you start to build a knowledge base, and it's built into your muscle memory. It's built into, you feel it, you know it, and then when you learn what to do and identify your goals, your personal goals. Maybe the way you play push hands, even though I was just saying that you're not supposed to push the person completely over the edge. Maybe you like to test people a little bit more, and that's okay if that's your thing, because then you're going to get to somebody else eventually who knows how to deal with you. And then you're going to have to figure out how to deal with them. And you may want to rethink your strategy. And it's that process of consistently refining yourself by playing with multiple people and dealing with pressure from multiple people, and the amount of strength you get. It's all, there's, when I say holistic to athletic, there's all these massive health benefits from doing this stuff, but then you also get ridiculously strong and flexible in ways that most people are not flexible. And I may not be able to do a full split, but my waist is incredibly flexible and incredibly strong, and it's uncommon strength. So,
right, because you get it from uncommon movements.
it's just that most people are training that stuff. This is this stuff. Most people aren't training this stuff. Therefore, they don't know what we're doing.
Exactly.
It's uncommon only by this point in time, and therefore eventually it will become common, and then we'll just have 10 years ago MMA was not where it is today, and now I feel like the general person on the street, general kid, knows how to fight a little bit, knows how to put somebody in a choke, and it's a different landscape. Like it's the general collective consciousness understands combat, I think, to a greater degree now, in terms of at least sport combat, than they did a decade ago. Yeah. So, and that's just me pulling up fights on Instagram and just seeing oh wow, that kid just choked out the kid.
Right.
That just happened in the middle of the street. Wow.
Yeah.
A few years ago, you'd see guys swinging like this. You don't see that anymore.
Right.
You see best practices actually.
Yeah.
So eventually, these best practices will bleed into those, and we'll have more efficient fighters. We'll have more efficient athletes. And we'll have more efficient people, because it changes the way you walk the street and how you deal with people, how you talk to people, but I think that how you talk to people, how you deal with people aspect of it, I do think that it's important to have someone coaching. Talking about how this actually relates to lifestyle, because there's, like I said, Josh has gotten a lot of negativity from the Tai Chi community in the U.S. and is very well respected outside this U.S. Because of him being a guy in his 20s who just started Tai Chi a few years ago and beating all of the masters in tournaments because he had a background in long form pattern recognition from chess, from being this chess prodigy. So he was playing a game that they didn't know how to play. He was perceiving and seeing it in a different way. And so, and he and Dan would go through every weight class. The U.S. tournament circuit, the major tournament circuit, banned people from doing that after Josh and Dan.
Why?
Because
ban people from moving from weight class to weight class?
Competing in every weight class. So Josh and Dan would compete in every weight class.
That is so
and
interesting.
Win all of the weight classes.
That is so interesting because that essentially make it less competitive. No?
Making it less competitive because of
You're putting more restriction on.
They're putting more restriction on it, and I'm not sure if they've lifted that since. But it's if you really know how to deal with pressure, it shouldn't matter how big the person is or how small the person is. Not to say that it doesn't have an effect on it's not a variable, because it's absolutely a variable.
Sure.
But because of Tai Chi, I'm not scared of a 283-pound dude running at me.
Right.
And it's because I've dealt with that.
Right.
Many times. So
actually, on that note, let me ask you this: in terms of, because we're now venturing to picking your opponents, the appropriate quote unquote opponents, right? So some school of thought is, it doesn't matter, you can learn from everyone, even if your skill level isn't quite there, you can still learn. If let's say your skill level is like 0 to 100, and you just compete with someone and get crushed, right? Another school of thought is, let's make sure that you match up with people who is similar in skill level, so you don't feel crushed spiritually. What's your take on picking the right opponent for the maximum learning?
You're talking to the guy who's I got my ass kicked so much, and I'd run to go get my ass kicked. Like I'd run right to it.
Okay.
So I have a perspective that I may not throw everybody. Actually, people on my team, I kind of throw them into this. But I do think that when you're in the process of getting to a place of when you need to absorb as much as possible, because that's not always the case. Like your different seasons require different behaviors. So in the seasons when I knew I needed to grow in particular ways as much as possible, I would put myself against the toughest people I could as often as I could. My dad and I, when we got recruited onto the team from Josh, which is a fun story that I'm happy to share. But we got our asses kicked for 3.5 months, like straight. Like we were just sore. We were getting thrown on the ground, and we were the first outsiders pulled onto the team that weren't from the William C.C. Chen school. Because we moved differently. We came from Wu style Tai Chi. They did a reverse breathing Yang style that's very, very rare. And I love that. I love the learning curve. If you're willing to put in the time and the analyzation to figuring out what's going on, why are you losing so much?
So you actually train yourself to enjoy the process.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is actually extraordinary, because most people don't enjoy losing. They enjoy winning. I think I was one of the internet personality, Grant Cardone. He said, you learn more from winning. You don't learn more from losing, which is an interesting statement. I was like, oh, that's an interesting thought. But you think otherwise, actually.
Well, again, it's such a personal journey. I think that when it comes to, people, one of my father's older students, I took over a class from him a few weeks ago, and is this okay for sound?
Yeah, that's fine.
We were doing the single arm push hands exercise, and she was saying, hey, this guy's he's not moving this way when I turn him, and saying all this stuff. And I'm like, well, I stopped the whole class. I'm like, everyone look at this for a second. And so I'm like, so you're saying that he needs to change his behavior for you to be able to do what you want to do? I'm like, so you're giving him the power. It's up to you to figure out how to deal with him. And if you want to ask me a question, the question should be, how do you deal with this? Rather than make this guy change.
Like complain about his behavior.
Yeah, complain about his behavior. So, which is, again, in push hands, I feel like you can see, and this is again, this is my art. So, I assume people from other arts that have attained a certain level of perspective can see this as well in their own art for whoever they're guiding. But you can see every type of personality in this, and by what they say, what they do, how they do it.
Right. How you do one thing is how you do everything.
Yeah. I'm like, huh. I'm like, okay, so she's this type of person. But the great thing is that because the principles are so clear, the principles bring you back to this space of training a very particular type of discrimination. So by guiding her to say, hey, keep your arm out longer and turn him earlier, which was the solution. Like keep your arm out longer so that you maintain a mid-range distance and turn him earlier. Now she's getting it. So she's making the change now. Now she knows how to deal with a person of this size that is putting more pressure on her. So, and how does that, I mean, now we're talking about lateral thinking, but how does that translate to your daily experience in life? So, I mean, you have to, I think, at first embody it in one place before.
We got 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before moving into another.
Yeah.
So.
Oh man, there's so much more I can talk to you about. Holy shit.
I'm happy to continue the conversation from New York too.
Yeah, let's do a part 2 for sure.
Sure.
This has been a very valuable conversation. I hope people who are really discerning the wisdom that Jan is sharing with us.
I'm not sure if maybe you're going to add this beforehand. I didn't really frame.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tai Chi.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
And I feel it might be helpful because Tai Chi can be considered this ancient Chinese system, and it's very much a martial art, or was very much developed as a martial art. In the States, it's widely known as, I think for anyone over 77 years old or something like that, it's like the number one way to regain balance. But outside of the States, people of all ages do it. In Taiwan especially, you'll see like 6-year-olds doing Tai Chi, to China and Taiwan. But like kids start young and they're doing push hands. And like, my buddy Tui Xiao Chen out there coaches grade schoolers and high schoolers, and they're all doing this. And it's a safe, fun way to manipulate space control, like weight, understanding how to claim space, slow yourself down and speed up your perception of time. So again, I liken it to mindful wrestling because it's, you're moving slow at first, and then when you start doing the sports stuff, it becomes more competitive, more athletic. But it's one of my favorite things to share, and by focusing for so long on this, my parents both trained in Tai Chi. My father, helped to coach the U.S. team with me, and it's got several golds, and I think 2 bronze World Cups, but several golds as well. It's going to make the whole world better.
No, I feel it.
Thanks
for sharing your passion.
Yeah.
I really feel it. So for those, so for part 2, part 3, I love to just talk about how it translates to life in general,
Sure.
or business or relationships. Because I truly believe how you do one thing is how you do everything. And by learning how you manipulate space, movement, gravity, and working with other people, as you said, the ramification of knowing this art is making the world a better place.
Yeah.
Right. But we'll leave that little teaser for part 2.
I'll add to that teaser that Josh's formula for the book that he shared with me was that he would train, and I think he actually says this in the book, but that his training would fuel his writing for the book, The Art of Learning, and his writing would fuel deeper breakthroughs in his training. And It was a mixture of that comment and a formula for mastery that he taught me, where like you take one technique, break it down into parts, train those parts, and then put it back together, and now you've mastered that technique. Those two together helped me to craft a formula for my business and my life that I essentially call like a transmedia trifecta that I've done tons of consulting on, to essentially bring the relationship between intellectual property, the corporation or the governing, the stakeholder body, and artists that embody this, these IP are the vehicle for. And whether that's an artist or a character or a person or a personality. So there's a way that you can leverage. I've directly leveraged Tai Chi principles into like business formulas.
Yeah.
And with very measurable results. So I feel like that's me applying it in my life.
Yeah.
How do you apply it in your life?
Right.
Yeah. And these formulas, again, when it comes to lexicon and breaking things down, saying this is this, this is not that, that is that. When we have a shared language like that, then we can start to have. Then research is not repeated. You can actually look at someone else's research and say, "Oh, okay, wow, like cool, I can bring that on."
Right.
And now we've leveled up together.
Right.
Otherwise, everyone's going to keep on researching the same things and think that their breakthrough is something, that hasn't already been done before, and now we're still stuck in the Stone Ages. So.
One of my special superpower is the ability to assimilate knowledge base from different fields. So that's one of my favorite, one of my passion, and hence this conversation actually came out of that curiosity and desire and passion for that. So let's finish this. For those people who are inspired to learn more about Tai Chi, specifically movement, Tai Chi, is there a place that they can go to? Is there a DVD program, a digital course?
Jan's Tai Chi.
Jan's Tai Chi.
JansTaiChi.com or Jan's Tai Chi on Instagram. JANS taichi.com, TAICHI.
Yeah.
And all the stuff that we're doing with the new team out of New York, you'll find, you can Google us on or YouTube us, because we have a channel, Sports Tai Chi Push Hands. That's the channel if you're interested in the sport. But I focus on training with high performance athletes, with CEOs, with just top players in their field. Like one of my top students is a prodigy pianist, and she's a beast, and she's throwing grown men, across the room, and it's because she puts in the work and she understands the work ethic that it takes to become world class. And that's, I
How do you define world class, by the way?
competing on the world stage. I'd say it's simple as that. When you show up, it takes a lot to show up. It's amazing how many people don't show up. And to show up and then actually be able to stand, because the training to get there, there are all these layers of hesitation and intimidation that you have to get through as a person to go to the top of anything. And I think when you kind of get past that, it's like, oh wow, the top here, it's so small, and so many people from other places are here too. It's because like the top of your art, top of someone else's are super similar, actually. So once you get there, what do you do? And if the answer, or at least for me, if the answer is not help other people get there and build a new, make the top the new standard, then that's interesting, because then we can start building stuff on top of that.
Thanks so much for being here, Jan. I really, really appreciate it. I mean, you really articulate so beautifully. This is the reason why I want to do this kind of podcast. I want to interview master of their domain. I want them to share some of their own journey, their mental models and the daily disciplines that they do, such that other people who are listening, who aspire to achieve mastery of their own right in their own domain, can say, oh wow, I can try this on, I can try that on, I can try this mental model. So thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Yeah, the smoothie in my mouth. I love you, man. I'm so happy to have finally connected in person, because I've heard so much good about you, and just this whole week of spending some quality time, and it's just awesome, man. It's kindred spirit.
Kindred spirit.
A lot of love for you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm just very, 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 very happy to be alive at this moment.
Yeah,
So.
thank you.
Hey listeners, if you're enjoying this podcast and all the nuggets of wisdoms, go to bit.ly/Noble Warrior Review and leave us a 5-star review and tell us what you're getting out of this podcast. This will really help us attract other people like you and share these nuggets of wisdoms to others just like you. Okay, do that right now, bit.ly/Noble Warrior Review. Thanks a lot.